Hello everybody, welcome to game number 1 of this best of 3 series between macros42 and Jim Bob the Mighty. I'm Philothanic and I'm joined today by Blues once again. Blues, have you loaded in, and if so, what does the map look like?
It is sparse. You have all the iron, aluminum, carbon in one corner of the map, and the very little water on the other edge of the map. There are some low iron and carbon tiles in this northeast corner that you can work with. Try to minimize the shipping distances, but it will be a difficult one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if our players wait this one out and we don't see anybody jumping the gun. Maybe even wait for some cash before founding.
It is worth noting that it is an electronics colony with a double electronics price, so having access to those electronics resources are going to be important if this game goes long.
Right, otherwise this robot found by these two geotherms would be really nice. Other than that $200 electronics price.
HQ has been founded.
Jim Bob takes that double aluminum iron found as a expansive. Macros going for the scavengers found that you did not pick out.
Yeah, I'm okay with Jim Bob's found. As an expansive, you can sort of deal with the shipping distances a bit better, and he's significantly closer to the resources than Macro says. He's going to have serious fuel issues if he even gets to any significant water, which he does. He manages to get the high water first.
Yeah, that's
Neglecting aluminum on HQ1 to do it, but he should be okay.
he just needs a little bit more aluminum. Jim Bob purchasing as much aluminum as he can afford, 142, and he's currently sitting on it.
Doing a good job of making this as difficult for Macros as possible.
We're just gonna sit here and wait for the players to upgrade, as the starting resources other than electronics were all normal or low, so there wasn't a lot to power anybody into a quick HQ2 upgrade.
The other weird thing that Macros has found is that he chose to take this low-high carbon instead of medium-high. He could have founded one tile like southwest and he would have been fine taking the medium and high.
Yeah, that is odd. Just a little something to clean up. Maybe it was perhaps a misclick. He is going into 2 water right off the bat. And this water by itself is high water, is 0.75 fuel. Fuel is currently low-ish, but steadily increasing.
Right, that's going to change quickly. I'm not sure what his plans are for the water right away. If he can't manage to make a very quick transition, he's going to be in a lot of trouble very quickly.
Well, that high water is no longer a high. Jim Bob nuking it.
That actually feels like a bit of a mistake to me. Water is not going to be a major resource for a little bit, and there's a much more obvious target, I feel, in this aluminum. It's already up at $50. You nuke that out, your opponent's on trace. He can't do anything with all this water. He's just struggling. Macros is going to manage to get into farms, though. That should help power him through.
Yeah, farm's making pretty good. 48, 49, 52 with the adjacency bonus. Jim Bob, meanwhile, isn't really in anything that's making money. He went into 2 water himself and a low silicon all the way on the opposite side of the map.
Market is online.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand that exactly. Silicon doesn't feel like a major priority. Glass is pretty high, electronics are definitely climbing, so it's something he can make use of, but just having that single tile right now in HQ2 isn't really going to be doing enough to help him.
The game deciding to make life interesting for Jim Bob, auctioning this geotherm tile right next to his base. Always annoying when that happens. Macros takes it for 24,000.
I'm not sure how to feel about that. Power is creeping up, but it's moving fairly slowly. Jim Bob, his smaller commitment to steel is kind of helping keep that from rising too rapidly. Macros is going to go ahead and build that geotherm right away. He had a lot of carbon, made carbon very cheap, so it makes some sense. He also has this goon squad bought up for it.
Jim Bob, recognizing that the local authorities gave both players an extra claim and moves immediately into a black magic farm. Macros is still sitting on that extra claim. Maybe didn't notice that he has another one.
Nuke finally coming down on this medium aluminum. That is going to hurt Macros eventually. But at this point, he does have. No, he doesn't. That was Jim Bob with 300 aluminum.
Has been upgraded.
Yes, Macros is the first to HQ3. Jim Bob following very shortly. Macros has a goon squad, which he has not placed down anywhere. Probably just delaying.
He's also claimed a second geothermal tile. I'm wondering if maybe the goon squad's gonna go on the second geothermal. Just try to make him think that the first one's the one that was defended due to the timing.
And it does.
Jim Bob choosing to go into one geothermal and maybe 2 solar panels for his power.
Yes.
I wonder about that.
Thinking about the geotherm. Solar panel gets blown up. Fuel is very, very high, and Macros right now is the only one to go into fuel. He is just covering his fuel with these 2 reactors, making 0.3 fuel a second after paying for his 1 a second in freighter costs.
How could one refuse such a wonderful plot of land?
That's a weird tile. And since I'm not really sure either player really cares or should care all that much for it.
No, I don't. Especially not Macros, because Macros is, well, okay, still 50,000 away from making power money. But once this geotherm comes online, he would have been starting to pay through that a little bit.
Realistically, it feels like either player has to complete their triangle of water. Because 4 water a second still isn't going to get things done for Macros. Then having this extra 4th water claim just doesn't feel like it works well with that.
Feels like a little bit of an overcommitment for a 1v1, but I guess Macros figured it's a otherwise free claim for 16k debt. Jim Bob's deciding that he's not going to go for the second solar panel, probably because of this dust storm coming in. This geothermal plant is defended with a goon.
We're not surprised, just disappointed in you.
And the mind games Macros played with his goon have paid off.
Indeed they have. We see Jim Bob maybe having some issues with figuring out what he wants to do with power. This dust storm also throwing a wrench in his plans. Originally going for the 2 solar panels, now he scrapped out of the second one, even changed the position of the thing, moved into an electronics factory instead. It definitely feels like these could have been just the production buildings to start with. Rely on a single geotherm. With your opponent already committed to geotherms, you're not really going to be able to cut into that power quickly enough or effectively enough.
No, and power appears to be dying off fast enough that Macros won't make any profit off of it. Just pay some of that debt down.
The black market is online.
Macros does have a slight cash lead, 24 to 20k. Macros needs another 24k worth of materials to upgrade, most of that in the aluminum, which he still only has that single trace.
Jim Bob, something we didn't comment on was that he did claim this medium aluminum that is directly adjacent to his other farm, making sure the timing of the nuke worked with that
Let the
to
bidding begin.
kind of ensure Macros didn't have good access to aluminum in any way.
Carbon scrubbing is an interesting patent, especially considering that carbon's relatively cheap at 24.
Sold.
Jim Bob picks it up for
Letting it
14k, pushing him into C debt at HQ3.
A scavenger HQ has
I
been
can
upgraded.
understand why Macros didn't really care to push for it with that 1000 carbon on hand. It does still feel a bit cheap to me. Jim Bob doesn't really have good choices for access to carbon. He could grab this medium low or something and try to make that work, but with nukes available, you could have made your opponent's life really difficult for this electronics production. Instead, Jim Bob doesn't really have to worry about that at all.
Jim Bob swapping out both of his farms for a triangle of electrolysis reactors,
The black market is open for business.
leaving Macros the only player making food. If Macros is paying attention and had the cash on hand, this would be a nice opportune time to buy into food, but with only 12k in the bank, there's not much you can do to push that price up and punish Jim Bob.
He
At
has
this
at least
point.
stopped auto-selling the food.
Yes. So the food price will rise. Jim Bob with that interest tick back into C debt. 134k debt at Sol 5.
Jim Bob moving into an optimization center, not a move you really see often in 1v1.
Well, the optimizations are cheaper than they used to be. Only 10 chemicals for your intro optimization.
And there is a very clear target for optimizations in the electronics, but I do worry that Jim Bob is in a bit of a hole here in terms of debt
The black market
and
is
other
online.
issues that maybe it's not in the best position to do that. Although he is,
The optimization
this entire
center is
game he
ready.
has been playing
Time
to
to start
drag the
improving
game
everything.
long, both with the expansive found, but all these nukes raining down. Instead of all the EMPs that Macros has been using, it's sort of really weakening Macros' long-term position. So
Right. Jim Bob is punishing Macros for having less claims than he does in Macros is just temporarily setting
You
back
can't let
Jim
them
Bob
get
with those
this.
EMPs.
Bid now before it's too late.
my main concern is just whether or not he's focusing too much on the long term, really hurting his short-term position, making himself perhaps a bit
Congratulations.
vulnerable, accumulating all this debt.
Macros is moving into a patent lab. Is going to research slant drilling. Considering all the nukes that have been raining down in his position, that makes a lot of sense.
Right, that essentially guarantees his
patent lab
water's
is
never going
constructed.
to
Let's
be
get our
depleted,
science on.
guarantees his aluminum will be back
The
to
black
good
market is open
amounts,
for
and his
business.
carbon will be excellent if he ever chooses to go off-world. If he doesn't choose to go off-world, well, his carbon's probably never going to run out.
Macros did spot that suspicious-looking steel mill and blew it up with a dynamite.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a mistake from Jim Bob there, leaving that hologram tile empty for quite that long. Kind of really points out that there is something going down there.
Right now, Jim Bob has a 50k lead in cash on hand, but a significant 100k lead, quote unquote, in debt. Before that interest tick added another 26,000.
Right, he did manage to pay off around 20k of debt before the interest tick happened to sort of prevent him from spiraling even further, but it still hurts.
So let's see, Macros is undoubtedly waiting for slant drilling to come online before upgrading, as he still needs another 35k worth of aluminum.
He also has to be very concerned at this point. Jim Bob inching pretty close to that 100%. This electronics production is really doing a good job carrying him through, as well as some moves with holding up the aluminum price and the water price while Macros was struggling with those resources.
Jim Bob deciding to make a run on Macros. EMPing Macros after, was that one that he had bought and held? And it looks like Jim Bob will have the game right here, finishing it off before his debt became too much of an issue.
I think.
Go ahead.
I think it's mostly just a matter of Jim Bob recognizing the better found and manipulating resource prices a bit better. Noticing this electronics production in particular, I think, was a big deal that Macros never really computed in that market.
Right, those electronics, let's go check the charts and graphs. The electronics made Jim Bob a nice 123K. He was selling those on the market. The most Macros made on any one item was power at 78K, but that power never paid through his debt.
Right. There definitely, I think, was an opportunity for it to pay through his debt if he had managed things a bit differently. Well, I guess it was just that one water auction for 16K. The 24K geothermal auction felt a bit steep as well, but that was obviously part of the power, so it's hard to separate that.
The other area that Jim Bob, and we mentioned this during the game, that Jim Bob definitely played better than Macros was the selection of the black market, raining down 4 nukes on Macros over the course of the game, 2 at Sol 2 and then 2 at Sol 5.
Actually, just a lot more black market use overall, which is definitely strange coming. Well, I guess it's even when you discount the holograms, but in a scavenger versus expansive matchup, you should be expecting the scavenger to actually have more. Maybe a bit of a misstep on Macros' part.